little ASMR for you guys. Sorry, but it's that time of the month, per usual. And we ain't doing nothing without chocolate, okay? I was not getting off the couch without chocolate. So this all takes place in the year 2003 in St. Cloud, Minnesota, where Ken Mcleland lived with his 17-year-old son, Jason. Ken was the vice president of a photo album company called Creative Memories. It was a high-end management job, so he did spend a lot of time away from home. Jason's mother and Ken's late wife, Betty, had passed away from breast cancer when Jason was just a little boy. He was around, I think between the ages of 10 and 12 when she was diagnosed. She passed away on July 13th, 1998. Now, at that time, the family was living in Canada. They moved there so that Betty could be with her family during her final days. Shortly after her death, Ken and Jason relocated to the USA. They came back to the United States. They lived in Florida for a little bit before finally making their move to St. Cloud, Minnesota. During the time where they were living in Florida, Ken openly began dating a Swiss businesswoman. She was from Switzerland. That's what I just said. Her name was Alexandra Lawrence, and she eventually moved in with Ken and Jason. And at first, Jason was not too happy about that because he just, I don't know. His mother passed away from cancer, and he was just probably not really ready to see his father dating another woman or replacing his mom so quickly. I mean, it was all within the same year that his mother passed away, which is kind of weird if you ask me. How is you must have had something lined up, sir, because there's no way the same year, boy, I'd be rolling over in my grave. There ain't no way the same year I passed away, the same year, and you with another woman. Child, no. Jason, he just wasn't really ready to see his father move on like that. I mean, it was a lot for him. So despite Jason's reluctancy to, replace his mother within the same year that she passed away, can you tell I'm a little bit biased? But anyway, I try my best not to be. Ken went ahead and he proposed to Alexandra and they got engaged. Life was going great for Ken. I mean, he was at the highlight of his career. He found love again and was engaged to a beautiful woman. Jason was in a new school. They had a great home. I mean, it was beautiful. They were well off. I know there's a difference between rich and well off. I don't know what the freaking difference is. But I don't know because I ain't neither one right now, girl. Okay? All right? I'm a foot away from the streets. I'm not even playing with y'all. I'm a foot away from the streets. But Jason started attending St. Cloud Tech High School. They were just so excited to get this new start. Life seemed so good until on the evening of January 14th, 2003, just after midnight, Ken had returned home from a business trip earlier on that day, and Jason was returning from hanging out with some friends. Not wanting to wake his father, Jason quietly entered the home through the back patio door because you know how you be. You ain't supposed to be out that late. You be out past your hour and you be like, let me just he was pulling the old sneakeroo. The funny thing is I would have been too afraid to sneak out when I was younger because my parents would have beat my ass. That's just the, that's just the facts. There's no way I could have done that. My parents had me so in fear of getting my ass beat that I wouldn't even dare sneak out. Jason quietly entered through the back sliding doors. As an extra precautionary measure to not get caught coming in super late, he took a shower in the bathroom on the first level. He took a shower in the downstairs bathroom before creeping off into the kitchen to grab himself a little snack. On his way back from the kitchen, in the foyer, he made a gruesome discovery. His father's lifeless body was laying at the bottom of the staircase. Oh my God, here we go. He had been shot to death. There was blood everywhere. And Jason grabbed the phone and called 911. When investigators arrived on the scene, they found Ken's lifeless body at the bottom of the stairs. He had been shot several times. He had gunshot wounds to his temple, to his chest, to his right hand, and into his back. He was clothed in just a robe, and it appeared as though he had been ambushed as he was walking down the stairs. Investigators searched the home, but they found no signs of forced entry. However, Ken's watch, his government IDs, and his foreign currency was all missing. Somebody had taken them. Crime scene investigators also noticed that the .22 caliber gun shells was missing as well, all except for one, indicating that the killer had spent some time picking up the shell casings after they shot Ken. Is it me or do I look like an Umfa-Lumpa? You know, that thing from, you know who I'm talking about. Due to the nature of the crime scene, police believed it to be a robbery gone wrong. Outside of the home, investigators found 3 different sets of shoe impressions in the snow. 2 of the footprints belonged to Jason and his friend Matt, but whose was the 3rd set of footprints? An autopsy was performed on Ken, and the forensic pathologist recovered the 7 shell casings in Ken's body. And they discovered that 4 different types of ammunition had been used to kill Ken. The gunshot wound to his right hand implied that he had been trying to protect himself. They also found a gunshot residue on the palm of his right hand, indicating that he had been in direct contact with the barrel of the weapon. Based on the crime scene evidence, investigators believed multiple shooters were involved, or the crime scene was staged to appear like there was multiple shooters. They weren't sure which one, but definitely something was up. The first person police wanted to speak to was Ken's 17-year-old son, Jason, because he was the one who had discovered his father dead and was the only one home that day. As you know, oftentimes it is police protocol to look at the person closest to the victim because they're usually the ones who did it. Let's just be honest. During Jason's interview, police collected the clothes that he was wearing that night, and they tested it for blood and gunpowder residue, but no blood or gunpowder residue was found on his clothing. They also tested the palm of his hands for gunpowder residue, and that test also came back negative. So he was not eliminated as a suspect, but he was put on pause. He was put on hold. Let's just say that. He also told police that he and his friend Matt were outside smoking that evening because he wasn't allowed to smoke inside of the house, and that's how their prints got in the snow. But he wasn't able to identify the 3rd set of prints that were left in the snow. This set of prints became investigators' prime focus. Everything that they were doing in the investigation all surrounded around those sets of footprints. Investigators turned their attention to their next potential suspect, which was Ken's living girlfriend at the time, Alexandra Lawrence. A background check revealed that the couple's relationship wasn't going that well. Actually, their wedding had been put on hold. The couple had been emailing back and forth, and it wasn't really good. Investigators reviewed numerous emails that pointed to the couple having problems in their relationship. Although the couple's wedding had been put on hold, Alexandra was still listed as Ken's beneficiary of one of his life insurance policies. And that life insurance policy was worth over $100,000. I mean, that's usually a tall tale sign. If I get married and my husband is like, hey, we should get life insurance. No. For what? Are you trying to kill me or something? Definitely would steer clear of the life insurance policies in the future. I'll just tell you that. However, with further investigation, police learned that Alexandra was in Switzerland at the time of the murder, and she was eliminated as a suspect. At this point, investigators turned their attention back to the footprints located at the crime scene, hoping to find a clue that would lead them to Ken's killer. Crime scene investigators were able to match the boys' shoe impressions to the impressions that were left at the crime scene. They sent the boys' shoes over to the forensics lab for testing. First thing forensic scientists did was to ink the bottom of the boys' shoes. So they roll like a ink roller, I guess, over the bottom of the sole of the shoe. And then they put this plastic film on top of the shoe and they press it down to make the perfect print. Once that's done, they then lay the plastic film over a photo of the shoe impression from the crime scene. That is how they were able to match the two boys' footprints to the shoe impressions found in the snow that corroborated their story that they had been outside smoking sometime during the evening. That third set of prints leading around the home up into the front door was still unknown. And the bizarre thing was there was no set of these prints leaving the home, just footprints going into the home. So what? Was the killer still inside? The first thing investigators needed to find out was what type of shoe made that impression. To do that, they ran a photo of the shoe impression through a system called Soulmate. I like that. Soulmate. You guys get it? I love that. I love that. Soulmate. That's a good one, I have to say. Soulmate is a computer software that can identify the make and model of any shoe or boot ever made. And they were quickly able to identify the print as a New York Lugs boot. Those types of boots were really popular during that time, especially in the hip hop community. A lot of people would, or teenagers would, wear these boots for fashion. The next thing that they did was to check all of the stores in St. Cloud that carried that type of boot. And there was a lot. We have company. Detective Inspector Lucy Cat has arrived. After Ken's case was released to the media, several tips came in claiming that Jason had wanted his father dead. A female student from St. Cloud Tech High School, the same school Jason goes to, told her father what she had heard. I mean, I'm curious, what had she heard? Because, baby girl. The girl was very upset. She was basically hysterical. And she told her father everything she had heard at school about Jason, and her father called the police. Now, there were rumors circulating around the high school that Jason was looking for a co-conspirator to help him murder his father, Ken. Now, the informant was brought in to speak with police, and she was beside herself. She was absolutely hysterical, crying, telling police everything she had heard and saw, and she was very, very upset and traumatized over the entire situation. I guess even though Jason had been saying these things around school to people really didn't know whether they should believe him or not. And most people didn't believe that anything would actually happen until it did. Also, several other students came forward alleging that Jason had personally offered them money if they helped him kill his dad. Now, everyone turned him down except one student named Matt Molier. He was the only one who, I don't know, for whatever God-forsaken reason, thought it was a good idea to jump on board and help Jason out with his little plan. Now it's time to go into the palette. One of the shadows are broken, so I'm not going to slam it. But anyway, back to the story. Again, thank you so much to the subscriber who gifted me this palette. I will leave a link to my Amazon wish list in the description below. It really does help me out, so thank you guys. Jason was going around asking people at school to buy a gun from them, and it just so happened that Matt owned a .22 caliber rifle, and he agreed to loan the rifle to Jason in return for money. I mean, you know, it's crazy because both of these kids were pretty well off. Like, their parents had money. So it's not like they really needed the money. While Matt's family wasn't as rich as Jason's, Matt's family was doing pretty well. They had money as well. So I don't know. So anyway, Matt agreed to let Jason borrow the weapon for $1,000. But why on earth would Jason want his father dead? Well, with further investigation, detectives learned that Jason and his father Ken had a very strained relationship. It started back when Jason's mom, Betty, was still alive. Jason's friends told police that he was very, very angry with his father for leaving his mother when she had gotten diagnosed with cancer. Because remember, he got that job and he was just traveling all over the place, so he wasn't really around. Shortly after Jason's mom, Betty, had gotten sick, Ken became preoccupied with his new job. He was traveling very, very often. He was doing like international traveling as well. So he was spending days, if not even weeks, away from home. Oftentimes, he would leave 12-year-old Jason alone with his sick, dying mother. It is said, is rumored, that sometimes Jason would be left home alone without any food, which is insane. That's crazy to me. Like, I don't really want to judge Ken because everybody deals with that situation in a different way. Probably he just didn't know how to deal with his dying wife. He didn't know how to help the situation, and the only thing he could do was to distract himself. I mean, I also don't think it was a coincidence that right after Betty passed away that he just openly started dating a new woman, like within the same year. That kind of looks a little bit, I mean, it doesn't look good. That's for sure. It doesn't look good. I mean, when did you have time to actually meet and date her? You know what I mean? I'm sure Jason noticed that, like, all of a sudden his father pops up with a brand new woman within, like, I don't know, months of his mother passing away, and now they're engaged and getting married. Like, it really doesn't look great. So with all of this going on and with the rumors that Jason was left home for weeks without food, could this be a possible motive for Jason wanting his father dead? They were about to figure it out. Investigators went to Matt Molier's home with a search warrant. And after searching the teen's bedroom, they found a .22 caliber rifle. They took the rifle into ballistics for testing. They fired the rifle into a tank full of water so that they could first get those shell casings from the rifle. Once they had gotten the shell casings from the rifle, ballistic experts compared the shell casings from the rifle to the shell casings found in Ken's body. But they were unable to confirm a match because the lands and grooves were off. It appeared as though the gun barrel had been tampered with. There were unusual marks and scratches inside the barrel of the gun that did not match the lands and grooves that were found on the two shell casings, indicating that the bullets were shot from a different firearm. Was it different people shooting, or was it the same gun with different bullets, which doesn't make sense? Like, what in the heck was going on? Ballistics experts used something called a baroscope, which is an instrument used to inspect the inside of a structure through a small hole. That is when they discovered that the marks were fresh and that someone had intentionally tampered with the inside of the barrel, possibly to prevent a ballistics testing such as this. The next thing that they did was to test the casings from the test firing to the casings found at the crime scene. Remember, there was that one casing that the killer had left behind that they found. So they were able to take that and test that one up against the test firearm. This time they focused their attention on the markings made by the firing pin as it hit the bullet. And what do you know? It matched. Other testings performed on the weapon revealed blood droplets on the inside of the rifle barrel. They performed a DNA test on the blood droplets, and guess what, you guys? It came back, and the blood droplets was none other than, you guessed it, Ken's. So now they knew for sure that on the night of the murder, Ken had grabbed the barrel of the gun, most likely to protect himself, as a measure to protect himself from being shot. And due to the backfire, his blood went inside of the barrel of the gun. Also because they had found that gunpowder residue on the palm of his hand, remember? Investigators finally had what they needed to make an arrest, and Matt Moeller was arrested and brought into the police station for questioning. Now, Matt, he wasted no time giving up his partner in crime. He told them everything. Well, not everything, mostly everything upfront about what happened that night with him and Jason and how everything went down. I'll just play the clips here. I want this kind of bird-like look today, like, this cockatoo. Is that even what it's called? Cockatoo? You know the bird. You know the bird. I want that bird. I guess it's a cantu. I think it's cantu, not cockatoo. Whatever, guys, whatever. And during his interrogation, Matt released a piece of information that hadn't been released to the public yet. He told police that 4 different types of ammunition had been used in the gun that night. This was something that only police knew. Now, he said that they had decided to use the 4 different ammunition in the gun so that it would be difficult for police to trace the gun back to him. And he told police that Jason was the one that actually told him that and came up with the idea. And according to Matt, he did all of this for money. He said that Jason gave him $1,000 to borrow the gun to use to kill his father. But when investigators interviewed Jason, he gave them a different version of the story. Of course he did. He stuck to his original story, saying that that's not true. He came home that night and found his father laying dead in the foyer, that he had nothing to do with his father's death, and that Matt was basically lying. He was trying to be very convincing, telling officers like, he's seen stuff like this on TV and he would never commit a crime like this because he knows that people that do things like this would get caught, and there's just like no way he would even try something like that. Like, he was trying everything. At this point, investigators couldn't rely on either boy's version of events because, both boys was lying their pants off. Like, they both had good reason to try and protect themselves. So at this point, investigators needed concrete evidence, and they relied on forensic science to solve the case. Now, one of the tipsters that had came forward earlier on told police that he had been inside the McLeland's home a couple weeks, I think he said several weeks before Ken's death. He, Matt, and Jason was standing in the home. Matt was standing in the foyer as if he was about to ambush Ken, while the other 2 guys were standing side by side making a pow pow noise. Like, what the heck is that? Watch your kids. That's all I gotta say, y'all. Watch your kids. So now the investigators are thinking, is this their third person that the third set of prints belong to? Like, there were so many kids in that school that Jason went to that he had spoken to about murdering his father that they just weren't sure, like, who all was involved. Is it giving Ken 2 vibes, guys? Is it? I think it is. I think it is. So all of this was happening. Police had no idea who was actually involved. But then police got a break in the case when that student came forward and told police that he knew where the bloody clothes were that Jason was wearing the night of the murder. And sure enough, police found the bloody clothing exactly where the student had led them. And you guys, you won't believe where the clothes were. They had been buried on another property owned by Matt Muller's parents. Another property, so his parents own multiple properties, which means he ain't that damn poor where he needs to be loaning out his gun for $1,000. Investigators recovered a pair of blue jeans that had a pair of gloves in the back pocket. They also recovered a plaid button-down shirt, as well as a pair of white socks and a baseball cap. They also found Ken Mcleland's wallet, his business card, and foreign currency. When questioned, the students at Tech High said that the clothing belonged to Jason McCleland, and that they saw him wearing that same outfit the day of the murder. So all of the clothes were sent over to the forensics lab for testing, and they found small droplets of blood on the clothing. They tested the DNA found on the clothing, and it came back positive for Ken Mcleland's blood. Not only that, but they found gunshot residue on the gloves from 4 different types of ammunition, corroborating Matt's version of events that Jason was the one who had fired the fatal shot that night. With all of this, they definitely had enough evidence to go ahead and get some kind of conviction. But there was just one thing that puzzled investigators. Who had left this third set of prints in the snow? They really wanted to get a clean conviction, and without proving who the third set of footprints belonged to, they wouldn't be able to say that, without a reasonable doubt, that the two boys were the ones who had committed the murder. So they needed to figure it out. Investigators turned their attention to Matt again, since he seemed to be the weaker of the two boys. He was the first to confess and tell, his version of events. So they thought, he seems like a pretty weak link. Let's go for him. They told Matt how bad first-degree murder was, and they reminded him how second-degree murder was a much better option than first-degree murder, and if he was willing to work with them and speak up and tell his version of events first, they could offer him some sort of deal. And of course, he took the deal and he confessed for a lighter sentence. He told investigators that the boots belonged to him, that they were his, and that he had been hiding them in his basement. Then he gave the boots over to police. According to him, he thought it was a good idea to throw police off track. He thought it was a good idea to put additional footprints in the snow to divert detectives away from the two boys. And he was kind of right. It almost worked. I mean, for a good chunk of the investigation, they were focusing on that third set of prints, so he kind of did throw them off. Forensic scientists compared the footprints from the crime scene to photo impressions of Matt's boot. Finally, this was the evidence that prosecutors needed. They could now prove that without a reasonable doubt, Matt Moliere and Jason Mcleland murdered Ken Mcleland. During the trial, Jason pleaded not guilty and now had a new story claiming that he killed his father in self-defense. The jury was probably looking at his ass like, take his ass to jail. We don't even have to come out here and comment on it. Thanks to forensic science and some good police work, Jason Mcleland was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Matt Moliere pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. What did you guys think about this case and my makeup look? Please let me know in the comments down below. I know it's a little wild. If you like videos like these, you can check out some of my other episodes. I'll leave them linked on the screen right here. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please share because it really helps me out. And I'll see you guys next time with another true crime story time. Bye.